Hump Day. Welcome to Frontline. No shortage of news tonight at 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we are expecting a DHS press conference from Minnesota at any moment. We're going to take you there live once it begins. But first, this was a justified shooting, and actions have consequences. Let's do this. Well, this is what you get when you encourage the general public to resist ICE. You get a woman who is so inspired to hate ICE that she attempts to block their convoy in Minneapolis. When the ICE agents get out to arrest her, which they're well within their rights to do because she's impeding an active investigation and operation, which is a federal offense, she tries to run over the ICE agent right in front of her and drags another one reaching through her open window. The officer, I think justifiably, shooting her in the face through the windshield before she hit him. He stumbles out of the way. I mean, this is what happened. It's on multiple angles of multiple videos. It's not up for debate. But the mayor in that jurisdiction, who has never held back his hostility towards ICE because he's a Somali bootlicker, came right out after the shooting and basically declared war on federal agents.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. Now somebody is dead. That's on you.
No, it's not. Flood the zone, Trump. Put 5,000 agents in that city tomorrow and arrest any immigrant with so much as a parking ticket and anybody who gets in the way from doing it. And Tim Walz thinks they're going to run some investigation. What are you going to do? You going to arrest an ICE agent? I mean, have you heard of the supremacy clause, moron? And he basically goes out and he says he's going to use the National Guard to protect criminals in his state from ICE agents.
You can be assured whether it's the State Patrol or whether it's the National Guard, their deployment is there to protect Minnesotans from whatever it is. If it's an act of nature, if it's a global pandemic, or in this case, if it is a rogue federal agent. I don't know at this time.
Holy. This guy is literally staging an insurrection against federal law enforcement. This is sedition. Pitting the state, there's the definition right there, pitting the state-run National Guard against federal agents. Let's see how this turns out. And not to take a line from Mark Kelly.
You can refuse illegal orders.
This might be the time to ignore orders. If your governor tells you to enter armed conflict with federal agents, you might want to ignore that order. I'm so concerned about this because these same National Guard troops during COVID took orders and they shot residents, their fellow Minnesotans, in the face with paintballs, sitting on their own porch. I mean, no telling how far they're going to take this. Walz said this was totally avoidable, too.
This was totally predictable, as I said it yesterday, and it was totally avoidable.
Yeah, it was totally avoidable, dude. If that woman didn't intervene in a federal operation and try to run over an ICE agent, I mean, Walz and Frey, they better wake up. They're not in charge here. They gave that up when they started convincing people that ICE was the problem and not the people stealing money via daycares, sending it back to Al-Shabaab.
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents that somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed.
That was last month. And their war on federal agents, Mayor, has gotten one of your constituents killed. It's not ICE, it's you and people like you, you liberals, you hacks. You people are insane. Your rhetoric, along with your nearly every other Democrat, has incited such rage in like this undeveloped subpar intelligence of the liberal mind. You have convinced not an unreasonable amount of people that they should actually oppose federal law enforcement from doing their job. And now you have a woman ramming her car, attempting to hit federal ICE agents because of that red. I mean, this is the danger. These Democrats have concocted this narrative, and they've convinced people that people who broke our laws to get here in areas like Minnesota, 75% of them are receiving benefits, and 9 million of which is being, whisked off to who knows who for fraud. while they commit half the crime and half of them don't even speak English. Democrats make those people the victims? That ICE agents coming to get the worst of the worst are somehow the villain there? Are you kidding me? While you and I pay taxes that are funneled out of our bank accounts and our children's bank accounts to fund that crap? These Democrats have convinced people to such an extent that this woman used her car as a weapon. This is the culture shift. When you raise the Somali flag over your city, Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, when you have elected leaders that are, by the way, coming out to find that may or may not, but probably may, were partially elected by people who shouldn't have even been voting in the first place. You have people genuinely believing that the federal troops are somehow Gestapo. They're not. They're getting people out of here who broke the law, who shouldn't be here. This is insane. Jacob Frey and Tim Walz, they weren't this mad when a trans person shot up a school and killed American children. You see the problem here? Like, I hope Trump goes in and just cleans out this entire Somali constituency and ships them back to the third world dump they came from. I'm not even sorry about that. And you know what? I'm fine with lethal force in this case, too. I don't care, because that's a criminal, because that's what this person became the second she intervened and then rammed an agent with her car. That is the justifiable use of lethal force. I'm sorry, I'm not losing any sleep that she got shot. And you can gasp and clutch your pearls all you want. I am so done with watching our law enforcement officers having to treat suburban encounters in America with white liberals like an op in Fallujah. Because right after this happened, hundreds of other, thousands actually now are gathering. All these crunchy liberals in corduroys, these just descending onto the scene. They're harassing law enforcement, putting hands on. These people have gone mad. In what world? When I was a kid, like, you saw a police officer, you always had that respect. That is gone nowadays from the left. Like, that is never the solution to aggressively assault an ICE officer. I'm going to say something controversial because that's just what we do here. ICE and other federal agents, draw that line. Draw a line and say, hey, morons, on the other side of this line is lethal force. You don't get to put hands on law enforcement officers. That's not your First Amendment right. You're not fighting Nazis. You're assaulting agents that, because of rhetoric, like people like Jacob Fry, has led to attacks on their lives. They've had to cover their faces. Agents should absolutely consider any aggression towards them as a lethal attack and respond accordingly. I'll always have your back because it's coming. You don't think this is already some big liberal machine is moving money around, working to bring in the protest buses tonight, just like they did with George Floyd, which ironically only happened a few miles away from where this was today. This is going to be George Floyd 2.0, not because anybody cares actually about that liberal white woman, but because it's an excuse to pit against federal agents, Trump and ICE. Ironically, the day after these same thespian Democrats, they got up in Congress and held this stupid candlelight vigil for what they still claim was an insurrection on January 6th, which it was not. Jacob Fry and Tim Walz need to understand that what they are committing is an insurrection. And we have a choice. We can draw a line in the sand right now. And the two options are simple. We can either let another $2 billion of cities go up in flames, or we can restore order, which you know is going to create some sort of short-term conflict because of Democrats. This whining and crying is coming from Democrats who, by the way, justified Ashley Babbitt getting shot when she wasn't assaulting anyone. Should that be the new standard in Minneapolis? I mean, I'm asking, if an agent thinks someone is being aggressive, not even touching them, are they cleared hot? I'm asking the question here. And if your answer is no, then lock up that Capitol police officer who shot Ashley 5 years ago. Can't have it both ways, libs. These people can protest all they want, but they can't be allowed to take this to the level they are. The answer is not to let the inmates run the prison. The answer is to restore order. This has got to stop. You don't get to assault law enforcement officers because you lost an election, when America gave Donald Trump a mandate to enforce our immigration laws. But a clear line needs to be drawn on lethal force, and cops need to use it when their lives are threatened. I mean, it pains me to say this. I hate being here, but we cannot allow this type of lawlessness. Newsmax correspondent Joe Moeller is on the ground in Minneapolis, was at these protests today. Joe, I see you're on your iPhone right now because you're moving and grooving over there. This is getting bad.
Yeah, it was a day out here. I know when I got word of what happened here, I was at somewhere else in downtown Minneapolis, rushed here, and the crowd quickly formed. A lot of the video you were showing earlier, I shot actually on my cell phone, and you could just see the tear gas being dispersed, and you could see, ice and snow being thrown at these agents, them being yelled at. And so it really intensified. And even here right now, it's pretty intense. I'll flip around my camera here so you can all see. This is the crowd that's forming. Carl, today escalated. The protesters have now shut this street down themselves for this demonstration. You mentioned it. This is not too far from where the Floyd demonstrations were as well. So it's still early here, so we'll see where this ends up.
Joe, it looks like there's thousands of people gathering down there. What is the interaction you're seeing between federal law enforcement, ICE officers, DHS, whoever that may be at the time, and local law enforcement? Are they working together, or is it like the OK Corral?
Well, yesterday, the police chief did have a press conference on that topic and says, hey, we're not immigration agents. So we're here. We have officers on standby in case anything happens. His big concern was unrest. And that is clearly what's happening here today. You're seeing this crowd form. I don't see any law enforcement out here now. So that's a little interesting not to see them out here now, but they were out here from when this investigation was happening, but they have made it clear they don't help with these sort of immigration enforcement operations that we're seeing. Now,
do you know if this has stopped the tempo of ICE agents operating in Minneapolis at this time? Because I know there was a slew of things they were doing over there, from libraries to businesses to this, and this was just one of the many operations they were doing. Are they still conducting active operations, do you know?
I do follow their activity on one of those apps that some of these protesters use to follow them around and harass them. And actually, after this all happened, I did get notifications that there was more ICE activity. And after this happened, a lot of this crowd were traveling different blocks because they heard ICE was going to different spots. And so as far as I know, this operation is still going. 2,000 agents were sent here for this. This is supposed to be the largest immigration enforcement operation DHS has ever done. Yeah. So I know agents have come from all over the country. They've left New Orleans. You have Bavino is also here, one of the top Border Patrol officials.
Joe, stay safe. I appreciate you sticking in the middle of this, and keep us posted.
Yep.
All right. Rich Stanek, the former sheriff of Hennepin County, Minnesota. All right, Rich, I'm watching, and your stomach must be churning. I'm watching the governor say that he could potentially set National Guardsmen up to take down ICE agents. That's an incredible escalation.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, is the escalation of words. Governor versus president versus mayor of Minneapolis versus police chief versus residents. Come on, if everybody would just take a little chill pill, take a step back, tone down the rhetoric, let them do the investigation. What's happened has already happened. It was tragic. It's bad. Somebody lost their life today. What the circumstances are is what we're all trying to figure out. And the only way we're going to get that is by getting accurate, concise information. Making assumptions isn't helping anybody. It's just making it worse, as you can see by the protests and the demonstrations going on right now.
But, sir, they're talking about all this stuff. They're saying, well, she was scared, so she drove. It doesn't really matter. If you're told to get out of your car because you ran into, she drove into the middle of an ICE convoy, and if they're telling you to get out of their car, you don't get to drive away.
Well, the law is clear. A vehicle can be weaponized. In this case, it appears that it was. She was given a lawful order. She saw at least three agents surround her vehicle, including one blocking it from the front. What else could they possibly have done? And then he pointed his firearm at the front window, and she still drove forward. It appears to have hit him. But again, there are a lot of different cameras and videos out there of what happened, plus eyewitness testimony, plus the statements from the affected agent himself and the two eyewitness officers. Yeah. All that needs to come in, honestly.
Yeah, no, and President Trump obviously addressing the events today, saying that the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just they're trying to do their job of making America safe again. Like, we got to a place where we've literally turned residents, Democrat residents, I don't think there's any Republicans out there, to think that ICE is somehow like the Gestapo.
Well, you know, it's ironic. I mean, I spent 40 years in law enforcement, Minneapolis police, Hennepin County Sheriff, state of Minnesota. I'm born and raised in that community. I still live in this community. What's ironic is that local law enforcement is on the outside looking in because they have no working relationship with federal law enforcement in this case. I think the police chief's a good guy. I think he's conflicted. He works for elected officials that don't want to cooperate with federal law enforcement. And all those officers in Minneapolis and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office are caught somewhere in between. And then you've got something like this that happens. It was, honestly, people keep saying inevitable. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think, you know, unfortunately, incidents like this, incidents of violence, are going to continue to happen as long as that rhetoric is escalated.
Well, Rich, the other thing, too, is, you know, Waltz complained about that. It was like, oh, they're not coordinating with us. It's like, well, why would they? You told them you're not going to work with them. But also, we've seen this in Minneapolis. We've seen it in a dozen other cities where ICE tries to work with these people, and then they go tip off the communities that they're about to raid. So why would they tell them?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, I spent 40 years. I was commander of many of these investigations and high-profile incidents and officer-involved shootings. We always worked with our federal law enforcement partners. We were never on the outside looking in. We're always on the inside looking out, providing factual, accurate information, that transparency and accountability everybody's talking about, but they all have different shades of it according to maybe the political rhetoric or what party they belong to. And that's unfortunate for the residents like me who live in that community.
Yeah, and what I'm really worried about is law enforcement is going to conflict with each other. And then, unfortunately, you're going to have young men and women who just want to keep their community safe, stuck in the middle of this literal crossfire. So, Rich, we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. A lot more out of Minnesota next.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use, award-winning protection. With PCmatic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCmatic.com today.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
All right, folks, as you can see, the DHS is getting together. They're getting set up. Obviously, Christy Noem, Secretary of DHS, is getting ready to come out there and address this. I mean, this is a remarkable thing to have happened today in a bad way. But it is something we are going to have to deal with now. This is like kind of, I will say, the shot heard around the world. This is the bridge at Concord, because we've now kind of drawn that line where somebody has lost their life because they heeded the advice and what seemingly was the culture of their governor in Tim Walz, who, by the way, folks, we dodged a bullet in not getting that guy as the vice president. Can you imagine what this country would be like at that point? And it looks like Secretary Christy Noem is coming out right now. We're going to let her address the crowd.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frye's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frye refuse to protect Minnesotans and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before, and your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Fry called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand, too, on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
Can you clarify whether he was hit before or after the gunshots were fired?
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate. No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer-involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decisions.
Secretary, have ICE operations paused because of what happened today?
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you give us any insight into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
Secretary, will law
Over here.
Do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer used his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
So just to be clear, the shooting happened before or after the vehicle hit the officer?
I know you keep asking that, but that doesn't mean that the FBI is going to give you an answer today. There will be an investigation. We want to make sure that it's factual. What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today, that we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren. And that's simply not true. He said that to me on the phone, too, so I'll get him the documentation that he needs so that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today, too. Yes.
Can you explain the difference between that instance and today? Was a firearm discharged then? If not, what was the difference?
I won't speak to that case right now, but we can get you the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there and followed his training today. You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better. That hasn't been a part of the discussion. I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we know we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again. With that, we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene. I won't speak to that.
Were they on a crime that person may be committed that you were going after? Well, body camera footage.
I will let the FBI decide.
Were they on target today when they were in that neighborhood?
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using. But remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those all work with us every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations. With that, we'll get you more information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
Kristi Noem, Secretary of DHS, knocking it out of the park, saying what needs to be said. What's shocking to me, this is the second time this has happened to that officer. I mean, that shows you how prolific this is. Or prolific? I don't even know the word. But I mean, like, that shows you this is happening too much. I know thousands of law enforcement officers that have never had their gun leave their holster in their entire 20, 30-year career, and it happened twice to this guy. Chrissy Clark, Newsmax contributor, Luke Ball, political strategist. Chrissy, I see this, and I'm four ramming attacks just today. 3 were in Minnesota, this being one of them. 1,300% increase in assaults on ICE officers just recently. What?
It's disgusting, and it's a plague. It's a mind virus that's taking over our country right now because, to be honest, I'm mad at the woman who did this, not solely for her actions that we saw on camera, but for leaving behind children she has an LGBTQ flag in her bio, so I don't know, leaving behind a wife or a husband or somebody.
A wife.
We have infiltrated politics into our everyday being that we put and prioritize the well-being of alleged illegal immigrants over the well-being of your family, and you're willing to lose your life over it. I cannot think of anything more pathetic and sad.
Right, but Luke, the other thing too is Waltz came out today and was whining. I mean, that's what he was. He was whining about the fact that ICE doesn't work with us. Well, they're not working with ICE either. They're hiding people in local and state courtrooms to get them away from ICE. So why would ICE want to work with them?
Carl, the left wants this chaos. They want to create this sort of chaos around law enforcement officers, put them on the spot, put them in situations where they're literally risking their lives and being forced to defend their own lives. And then they come out and create mobs, they create riots, they create an environment in which they want to pull for political gain the old narrative back towards themselves. And they could not care less about the law enforcement officers' lives who are put at risk every single day. If you had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office right now, that ICE officer would be in prison right now. They would have already had judge, jury selection. They would have moved forward. They wouldn't be standing behind law enforcement. To see this administration come out so rapidly behind law enforcement and their actions is so relieving, but it just infuriates me that the left would rather create this sort of violence and create this sort of environment in order to push their political narrative, and as a result, people die from it.
Well, Luke, that's why recruiting is through the roof with these people, because all of a sudden, like you said, Headshed has rank and file guys back. But Chrissy, they've been talking about the fact that this woman was harassing them all morning.
Yeah, and this is why we don't know. We don't know for a fact whether she's part of these agitator groups or not. But I mean, what else do you expect? What other conclusion do you expect people to come to when you spend your entire Wednesday, agitating ICE agents on the streets for merely trying to do their job? And they weren't even engaging in an operation at this point. I believe, as Secretary Noem said, they were simply heading back to HQ.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've got to leave it right there. Chrissy, Luke, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
all right,
Carl.
coming up, we'll have much more on this Minneapolis shooting. Congressman Wesley Hunt is going to join me in a sec.
I switched to Newsmax.
Newsmax.
Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
This is the story of the one. The one knows that when the big game is days away, the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a solid game plan and a teammate like Grainger that she can rely on to deliver the product she needs when she needs it, she's confident that she will always win the day. And her team will do the same. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Where's my mother gonna... Oh, no. Is this the episode with the breakup?
Reba, we can't agree on the house.
Y'all need Realtor.com. With over 500,000 new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it. Realtor.com.
Don't kill your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Science didn't stop at diet and exercise. Why would you? Super Beats by Human delivers blood pressure support with clinically researched ingredients. Because cardiovascular health is everything health. Available at your local Costco.
Big East basketball is on TNT Sports. St. John's takes on the #1 women of UConn tonight at 7:30 on True TV and stream on HBO Max.
Affordable dentures and implants just got even more affordable. We're partnering with over 30 insurance providers nationwide, helping you save more while getting the care you need. We make quality care accessible, so you can restore your smile and feel like yourself again. Affordable dentures and implants. That's what we do. Schedule your consultation at affordabledentures.com or call 1-800-DENTURE today.
All right, well, if you're just tuning in, here's the scene from Minneapolis after ICE agents was forced to take decisive action this morning. One of them fatally shooting a 37-year-old female driver who allegedly, at this point, attempted to mow down an officer with her SUV. I mean, it's on video. Seems like a justified shooting to me. Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt, also veteran himself. So, Congressman, terrible that an American citizen lost their life. However, we now just found out from Secretary Kristi Noem that this person apparently had been chasing these ICE agents, harassing them all morning.
The bottom line is this: when a federal officer gives you instructions, you abide by them, and then you get to keep your life. And it is clear that she tried to use her vehicle as a weapon, mow over an ICE agent, and now she is dead. And her death is tragic, but at the end of the day, it was completely avoidable if she would have simply followed the commands of the ICE agents. But what really is more disturbing to me is Governor Walz's comments about using the National Guard to keep the federal government, ICE agents, out of his state. He has now gone full Jefferson Davis, and that's what I would call civil war. This is a problem. The left always does this. They always clamor for more violence. They always clamor for more rioting. Minneapolis, they've already burned to the ground. At the end of the day, the violence must stop. We must respect law enforcement, respect this president that said, I am going to clamp down on illegal immigration, and Minneapolis has become a cesspool for illegal immigration, and we're not standing for it any longer.
Well, and they always do it. They always do it behind this banner of like, oh no, peace. Do it. We want peace. We want love, like Jacob Fry said today. Tim Walz literally told Minnesotans to get out and protest, and that is, quote, a patriotic duty. Roll this.
Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty.
I mean, what is it, like this guy? I know he's stupid, but like that, people are going to go out there, and what do you think is going to happen when you get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, some of which are paid agitators, thinking it's their patriotic duty to oppose ICE?
Well, first of all, this guy's a beta, and he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. This is one of the largest fall from grace that we've seen in politics. Could you imagine this man being our vice president? No. And so if he gives me an order, I would actually urge people to ignore it because he has no idea what he's doing. His political career is actually over. Actually, the right thing to do is to abide by the laws of this land, and we are simply trying to enforce the laws. I think Kristi Noem did a wonderful job in explaining what happened and explaining what this administration is trying to do. We're trying to keep our fellow Americans safe. We're trying to keep these Ponzi schemes that are happening in Minnesota from happening. We are trying to ensure that we enforce the rule of law in our own country, like this president told everybody that he was going to do. That's exactly what we voted him to do. At the end of the day, this has all got to stop. And what's happening in these liberal bastions are events like this, and the violence will continue unless we continue to have resolve and enforce the rules that are already on the books.
And the other thing is Minnesota's leading Democrat candidate for U.S. Senate, Peggy Flanagan, she once urged activists to do this. Roll it.
Are being disappeared. P.S. Without due process, it is just called kidnapping. Then show up and use your voice. Put your body on the line.
I got 30 seconds, sir. Put your body on the... Okay, what do you think people are going to do?
They're going to listen to that, and they're going to put their bodies on the line. And this is why we need good, strong leaders that understand the rule of law, that respect this country, that respect law enforcement. And most importantly, these ICE agents are putting their lives on the line to protect their fellow Americans. Brother, you and I both served. I understand what it means to be that person. Look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's listen to law enforcement agents, and let's understand that they are simply enforcing the laws on the books. We owe that to them. Don't put your life on the line. Don't put their life in danger. Let's just follow the laws.
Yeah, exactly. And if you actually met some of these guys, I've met a bunch of them. They're all great guys.
They're
Congressman
amazing
Wesley
guys.
Hunt, pleasure, sir.
God bless you. Thank you.
All right, coming up, we'll have more on this shooting in Minneapolis next.
Not again. Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
Poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
During the Omaha Steaks end of season event, save 50% site-wide and get our Butcher's Classic assortment with USDA certified tender filet mignon and top sirloin fillets for just $99.99. Plus, get 8 burgers free. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
What if getting older didn't mean living with joint discomfort, brain fog, or low energy? Qualia Senolytic is the only all-in-one clinically tested formula with 9 ingredients designed to help your body clear aging cells. Taken just 2 days a month, this regimen works at the cellular level to rejuvenate energy and support longevity, helping you stay active and energized. With Qualia Senolytic, life truly gets better with age. Start today at qualialife.com/BOGO.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hare said recently to call 911 if you see illegals being kidnapped. Roll this.
There's folks that are masked, that they're not sure if they're law enforcement, that they may be kidnapping people. Like, we have had those reports. I want to be clear to the community. The community should know that if you see something like that, that is legitimate, that you don't know if someone is law enforcement, you should call 911.
Well, today they had Immigration and Customs Enforcement written on their body armor, and they got out of cars with lights and sirens on them. And this woman decided to ram one of them, and she was killed because of rhetoric like that. Charles Marino, former DHS senior advisor, and Mike Howell, president of the Oversight Project. Charles, this is like one of these things. They're dancing around the nuances, and then they're like, oh, people got violent. I don't know why.
Yeah, look at the side that they take when they talk about ICE enforcing the laws, right? They're kidnappers, they're Nazis, all this rhetoric that incites these far left-leaning, compromised mentally people in their communities that then get behind the wheel of a car and they're surprised when they try and run over an ICE agent. They're causing these situations. By the way, this shooting is justified all day long, twice on Sunday. Yeah. I did the last department-wide review in DHS of use of force policies, and this is what we call a no-brainer. When someone uses a car to try and seriously harm or kill a federal law enforcement officer, deadly force is justified. And I'm tired of hearing, this is tragic that somebody lost their life. Look, if the choice is between that lady and an ICE officer that wants to go home to their family just because they're doing their jobs, I want that officer to come out on the right side of this all day long.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I don't lose any sleep for this woman because she seemed crazy. But Mike, in the same vein, we're having the same Democrats are saying, Trump says peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, and he incited an insurrection. Yet you've got Tim Walz saying that he's going to use the National Guard to stop rogue ICE agents, and that's a quote.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I mean, the stochastic terrorism of the left is just nothing more than blatant incitement. It's because for a long period of time, their political strategy has been to flood the country with these people, and they've become dependent on it. But anyone paying attention knows this is the path the Democrats chose. The issue has really been the Republicans who gave them the space to do this over a long period of time. Yeah. And I'm talking about the Mike Pence wing of the Republican Party, the people who moralize this issue and push for amnesty over their careers. And, the Pence team is pushing refugee increases even today. And so, the Democrats are crazy. It's time for the Republicans to unite and put this stuff down and to stop playing games and pretend like it's an actual negotiation when it's not.
Yeah, Charles, the other thing, too, is, and Luke Ball brought this up a minute ago, is how much Kristi Noem and this administration has our troops back, because that is one thing. Like, I was overseas under Barack Obama and we were court-martialed for doing our job. And then it was like, oh, you guys are innocent. Just go back to work. Like, this administration has their back.
Well, the support's important coming from DHS and the federal government. Look, it's more than likely that you're going to see the state go after this ICE officer. These sanctuary cities have already said it, that they're going to go after these ICE agents. But the Supremacy Clause shouldn't allow that, should it? Well, it should not. And that's where you need the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi to come in with the full force of the United States Attorney's Office there in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And they're there to defend that officer. Like I said, this is justified. He did not place himself in that position. This lady caused this incident. So they're going to come to his defense. But I would not rule out that these states go after these ICE agents any way they think they can.
Mike, let's play that out. I mean, they say the state police come knocking on his door to arrest him. What happens next?
Yeah, it'll be a kidnapping of a federal official if they try to arrest him, and then it becomes a standoff. That's what the Democrats are really pushing for. This is Civil War type rhetoric and legal action. But I'll tell you what the solution should be. It should be mass deportations and an ultimate show of force by the federal government. The deportation numbers are pretty status quo right now, and the Democrats have riled their base up to this level of violence. Well, they don't know what could be coming next. And that's 2 commas in the deportation numbers on a regular basis. I'm talking about denaturalization at scale of these Somalians who haven't assimilated and did not meet the terms of their oath of naturalization. And so I'd like to see that out of the Trump administration.
Yeah. Get out of here. All right. Charles, Mike, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, more from Minneapolis in just a sec.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
My body is my livelihood, so I take it serious. It all starts with the right plan. Balance of nature just makes sense. Whole fruit and vegetable ingredients, simple.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen. This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do.
The Inogen creates portable oxygen from the air around you. When you have an Inogen, live life on the go.
I love this, and I love my Inogen because it lets me see this.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Give us a call right now. We'll answer all your questions. We'll send you an information guide, and if you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free.
I took a 10-day, 3,000-mile road trip with my trusty Inogen. I always call it my trusty Inogen. I do trust it.
This gives me the oxygen that the doctor prescribed for me.
You can continue to drag heavy and awkward oxygen tanks when you leave the house, or use the latest in medical technology to get the oxygen your doctor prescribed anytime you leave home. So give us a call. Try an Inogen system of your very own for 30 days, risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
This Inogen really works. You got to get off the couch and get one.
Wouldn't you rather have this than a tank? Really?
Pick up the phone, call the Inogen company. They're going to take care of you.
Call 1-800-606-1546 or visit Inogen.com.
Have a great trip.
Do you think they'll be okay?
Nothing's gonna happen. And if it did, your parents will take care of the kids. Doesn't count. What you need is a will. Something you can sign and make official. Get started at trustandwill.com and make it count.
Trust and Will. I'm out here telling people how their big financial friend, Experian, can help them find credit cards. Can I ask you a question? Do you have a BFF?
I do have a BFF, yes.
Do you know that you also have a big financial friend in Experian?
Yeah, how does that work?
Your BFF can help you get matched with credit cards based on your FICO score. Download the app.
Okay.
It's all here. You can see cards based on travel, low APR, the rewards, balance transfers, cash back.
I have to try this.
Get the app now from your big financial friend, Experian. Experian.
As you can see, it looks like thousands of people are starting to gather. I mean, this is actually a live shot right now. We have people on the ground that are monitoring this stuff. I mean, here's a live shot from the ground. Some people holding candlelight vigils, but I think a lot of these people, Rob, are looking for a little bit more than a fight tonight.
Could be. And, you know, the unfortunate of all of this is that the big winner is going to be people like Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, who needed a distraction from the horrible management of their state and have just now gotten it.
But the other thing too is, like, I'm looking at, I'm on the email list, fundraising emails from both sides on this. I'm like, guys, come on.
No, it's absurd what we saw today. And that reaction is absurd as well.
Yeah, they're breaking into courthouses right now, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that video too.
There you
Carl,
go.
thank so much.
Later,
We'll
Rob.
do it here.